Barakata Yahweh, Barakata Yahabushai, Bahasham, Barakahak Barakatum. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, glory, and infinite honors to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahabushai. Double honors to the apostles and elders, a great millstone who rule and teach well. In peace and salutations to you, sincere Akim out there, pushing this word in truth and sincerity to the four corners of the globe. May you brothers endure until the end. This is the brother Ra'aya with another video, and I'm going to start it off in Revelation chapter 12, verse 7. And there was war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon fought and his angels. And that war in heaven isn't talking about the spiritual demon Satan and, the so-called fallen angels fighting against the Most High, in the spiritual realm. This is talking about a physical battle that's going to take place in our realm. In the scriptures, you have three heavens. The first heaven, which is, the regular sky. The second heaven, which is space. And then the third heaven, which is the spirit world where the Most High dwells. And this war in heaven is going to be taking place in, the first heaven and low orbit space of the second heaven. And as it said, Michael and his angels, the archangel Michael, who's going to be coming with Yahabushai, the Son of the Most High, whom the world ignorantly refers to as so-called Jesus, with angels piloting a fleet of chariots. The chariots, known to these people as so-called UFOs or flying saucers, to fight against the dragon and his angels. The dragon being Esau Edom and his current power structure, the last leg of the fourth beast in Daniel chapter 2, those iron toes mixed with miry clay, the reincarnated Roman Empire, the NATO-EU alliance that the U.S. is a part of, and the angels of this dragon is Esau Edom, the so-called white man's military forces, as well as his space force, which we've been seeing a lot of these Western Edomite governments talk about the need for a space force in their military. And best believe the elites at the top who run the whole system, such as the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers and those devils, they understand the scriptures and know that this war in heaven is coming, so they're preparing accordingly. That Space Force is going to be used for more than just shooting down Russian and Chinese satellites. But as it says in verse 8, and prevailed not, neither was their place found any more in heaven. Esau Edom's forces won't be able to come close to the heavenly forces of Yahweh Bahasham Yahabushai. It's going to be a literal first round knockout. Verse 9, and the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan. And devil means deceiver and Satan means Shaitan, adversary. And this dragon, this old serpent, is again speaking to Esau Edom, who was back in the garden, that serpentile person, that wicked person who deceived Eve, and Eve deceived Adam, and you had the fall of the sons of God, the children of Israel, before they got that name, the children of Israel. And when you go up into the first couple of verses of this chapter, it talks about that great red dragon that tried to consume the woman and her man-child and cast down the stars from heaven, which on one hand is talking about, Mary and Yahabushai, and who tried to put Yahabushai to death? Herod the Great, who was also an Edomite, but who was he subservient to? The Roman Empire. Those iron legs in that statue in Daniel's dream, the ancient pagan Roman Empire. And again, we're living in the last leg of it. Those iron toes mixed with miry clay. But I opened up the video with these verses to preface a clip from the brother GMS in Rome Lions on Fire's YouTube channel titled, "The Space Force has been in work for years. Good luck, LOL," which is exactly what it is. Good luck, because what do we read in Revelation chapter 12? And prevailed not, but that dragon and his angels, that old serpent, was cast down from heaven, and his place was found no more. But as we'll see in this clip, for decades, Esau Edom has been working on a so-called space force and assets to, they say, the cover story is to what? Fight against the Russians or the Chinese and all that shit. But when we have an understanding of the scriptures, we know what the main target is, fighting against the Messiah, the Archangel Michael, and the heavenly host coming in that fleet of chariots to take away Esau Edom's rulership. But it's only about a 3-minute video. And before we get started, this is a fair use copyright disclaimer. I do not own any of the footage in this clip, nor do I stand to gain from it monetarily. It is simply for educational purposes.
On the verge of intergalactic war, saying, quote, the Bush administration has finally agreed to let the military build a forward base on the moon, which will...
Hey, and I'll just say this, as it says in Job chapter 9, verse 24, the earth only was given into the hands of the wicked, not the moon, not Mars, or anything else. But, as Tucker Carlson just said, a space division has been in the works since the Bush administration. And hey, what did Ronald Reagan say back in the 80s? The only thing that would bring the nations of the earth together would be a so-called alien invasion.
Put them in a better position to keep track of the comings and goings of visitors from space and to shoot at them if they so decide.
I was introduced to the late Dr. Wernher von Braun in the U.S., the father of rocketry.
And Wernher von Braun was a Nazi scientist who was hired by the U.S. government after World War II. Look up Operation Paperclip. The U.S. government and, the government of Nazi Germany had a lot of ties with each other. Hey, before this next clip came up, Tucker Carlson was talking about George W. Bush, which his grandfather, Prescott Bush, had a lot of dealings with Adolf Hitler.
In my first meeting with him, during that first 3.5 hours, he said to me, Carol, you will stop the weaponization of space because there is a lie being told to everyone that the weaponization of space is now first being based upon the evil empire, the Russians. There are many enemies, he said, against whom we're going to build this space-based weapon system. The first of whom was the Russians, which was existing at that time. Then there would be terrorists. Then there would be third world countries. Now we call them rogue nations or nations of concern. Then there would be asteroids. And then he would repeat to me over and over. And the last card would be the extraterrestrial threat.
Pardon me, I don't mean to interrupt you, but doesn't this make...
And we also know of Project Bluebeam, which deals with what? Huge holograms and audio, audio voice-to-skull type technology to where people can see holograms in the sky and hear voices in their head, which... Don't be surprised if Esau tries to manipulate mass numbers of people by faking an alien invasion. 2 Corinthians 2 verse 11, lest Satan should get an advantage of us, for we are not ignorant of his devices. But best believe, when Yahushua truly makes his second coming with the hosts of heaven, you're going to know it ain't no goddamn Project Bluebeam or little green men in flying saucers.
Sense. I mean, if in fact there are extraterrestrials and they're buzzing our planet, why wouldn't we want to take steps to defend ourselves from them should they turn hostile?
I think the second part of your question was related to UAP, or unidentified aerial phenomenon, and that UAP task force. And as far as I'm concerned, or am knowledgeable about that, I do believe it does involve collaborative inputs and information exchange with all kinds of countries around the globe, because I think these are not just solely actions or events that have occurred within the confines of the United States. They've occurred globally, and I think we're collecting that information. We're sharing information. We view that as an open and transparent effort and activity through the United States Congress and executed by our UAP Task Force Office.
And remember what this Major General John Olson said. Hey, we can see that it's not just incidences in the U.S., but globally.
So I would encourage greater collaboration and cooperation in that. And particularly, I think as we see various technologies that will help demystify or debunk or clarify. But I think it's also important. One of the reasons that we are doing this effort is because national security concerns are of paramount importance, and so is safety of flight and deconfliction and collision avoidance and issues to preserve and protect human life. So when we can better share and exchange information, I think that's better. Much like we do in the International Civil Aviation Organization, or otherwise known as ICAO, or in any other international bodies as well. I think there's a
Hey, what went from being science fiction in Star Trek is now what? Science fact. There is a confirmed Space Force out there, and it's going to be used to fight against more than just Russian and Chinese satellites. It's going to be used to fight against the second coming of Yahushua. But, as it states also throughout the scriptures, Esau, Edom, and his system and these other heathens won't prevail against the heavenly host of Yahweh Bahashem Yahushua. You Edomites are on your last leg globally, so you better live it up, because after you're taken out of power, hey, get ready to build up the new kingdom, the kingdom of heaven, free of charge. Let's get back into these precepts. This is Isaiah 66, verse 15. For behold, Yahweh will come with fire, and with his chariots, so-called UFOs, UAPs, like a whirlwind, to render his anger with fury, bringing that judgment, and his rebuke with flames of fire, because those chariots are going to be firing, concentrated heat, or what people would call so-called laser beams. This is Revelation chapter 19. I'm going to start at verse 11. And the header reads, The coming of Hamashiach. And I saw heaven opened, and behold, a white horse. And horses in the scriptures are symbolic for power. So what? Yahushua coming in that great power. Hey, I will not meet you as a man, as it says in Isaiah chapter 47. And him riding upon that white horse is him also coming in that massive fathership chariot, like a mountain, that Esdras saw in 2nd Esdras chapter 13. And he that sat upon him was called Faithful and True. And in righteousness he doth judge and make fury, to render the anger of the Lord with fury, and rebukes with flames of fire. His eyes were as a flame of fire, and on his head were many crowns, symbolizing Yahushua taking away the rulership of you heathen nations. And he had a name written that no man knew but he himself. Verse 13, and he was clothed with a vesture dipped in blood. Isaiah chapter 63, who is this that cometh from Edom with dyed garments from Basra, symbolizing the great death and destruction Yahushua is bringing to you heathens, chiefly you Edomites. And his name is called the Word of the Most High, which when you read in John chapter 1, it states that Yahushua is the Word of the Most High, made flesh. And the armies which are in heaven, Michael and his angels, followed him upon white horses, chariots, clothed in fine linen, white and clean. And out of his mouth goeth a sharp sword, those flames of fire, that concentrated heat being shot from the chariots, that with it he should smite the nations, and he shall rule them with a rod of iron, like I just said. After you Edomites are taken out of power, the only thing you have to look forward to is building up the kingdom of heaven for the first 1,000 years of it. Hardcore bondage and slavery getting bashed in with that rod of iron. And he treadeth the winepress of the fierceness and wrath of the Almighty God. But now I'm going to jump down to verse 19, because remember what that Major General said in that clip. This isn't just sightings in America, but globally. And I saw the beast and the kings of the earth and their armies gathered together to make war against him that sat on the horse and against his army. This dragon's going to try to fight against Yahushua's second coming and these other heathens as well. But they're going to share in the same fate, prevailing not and being cast down. Now I'm going to close it out in 2nd Esdras chapter 13 in the Apocrypha. I'm going to start at verse 5. And after this I beheld, and lo, there was gathered together a multitude of men out of number, the kings of the earth, gathered unto that beast from the four winds of heaven, from the four corners of the earth, to subdue the man that came out of the sea, the Shemayim, or the waters, which space is considered a water. So Yahushai coming into our realm to make war. But I beheld, and lo, he had graved himself a great mountain, and flew up upon it, that great white horse. But I would have seen the region or place whereon the hill was graven, and I could not. That fathership chariot was so massive, Esdras couldn't see the end of it. Think about Independence Day with those miles-long ships that literally cast a shadow over the cities they flew over. And after this I beheld, and lo, all they which were gathered together to subdue him were sore afraid, and yet durst fight. And, this is talking about in the Valley of Jehoshaphat in Western Asia, or what is known today as that so-called Middle Eastern region, during the battle in the Valley of Jehoshaphat, the War of Armageddon in Joel chapter 3. All in the midst of all these heathens fighting each other, Yahushua is going to make his second coming, and they're going to stop fighting each other and make and to try to fight against Yahushua. What did Ronald Reagan say? The only thing that would bring the nations of the earth together would be an alien invasion. But, and lo, as he saw the violence of the multitude that came, he neither lifted up his hand, nor held sword, nor any instrument of war, but only I saw that he sent out of his mouth as it had been a blast of fire, that sharp sword out of his mouth, and out of his lips flaming breath, those so-called laser beams, and out of his tongue he cast out sparks and tempests, and they were all mixed together, the blast of fire, the flaming breath, and the great tempest, and fell with violence upon the multitude which was prepared to fight, and burned them up every one, so that upon a sudden of an innumerable multitude nothing was to be perceived but only dust and smell of smoke. Think about War of the Worlds with Tom Cruise, when those tripods were hitting people with those laser beams. They literally turned into piles of smoke. When I saw this, I was afraid. So that's it with this video. And with this video, I hope your sincere Akim and Akwath were edified. We are almost out of this final wicked captivity of the heathen nations, chiefly of the Edomites. And as always, I'm going to say Abad Babal, Kwam Yasharallah, and until next